everyone, welcome back to Beyond the Veil Tarot and Astrology. My name is Candice Marie. Thanks for joining me. I'll be your astrologer today. Happy Thursday, everybody. I hope you guys are doing well. This is going to be a video that I'm going to be touching on the South Node moving into the sign of Libra. Thank you guys so much for your feedback. I had like a weird gap in my schedule where I could have made like an anything video. You guys had a lot of really great questions and recommendations for content, so I'm definitely going to be kind of feeding off of that list in the future, especially people who are asking questions about like stelliums or natal retrograde planets. I'll be making some of those videos in the future. But I thought this was probably like the most relevant given what's going on with the nodal changes that are going to be happening next month in July. A lot of people were asking questions about what it means to have your North Node in Aries or your South Node in Libra. What to anticipate during the nodal transits. So I thought this was perfect. I will still probably make another video next month, and I for sure will be touching on this in all of the horoscopes. But if you guys saw my video that I did last year, okay, I was pretty early with this. I did a preview of the North Node in Aries. I'll make sure that I plug that video. Maybe I'll put it in a pinned comment, or I'll put it in the description. And I really went deep into what it means to experience the North Node in Aries and what we might be experiencing collectively, as well as on a personal level. So in this video, I want to talk a little bit more about the South Node in Libra. I want to give you guys some insight in terms of my hot takes with the aspects, why it's so significant for relationships, and much more. I also heard a number of people asking questions about relationships and why there's so much relationship stuff going on currently. While that's very much tied to the South Node in Libra, it's also going to be tied to this upcoming Venus retrograde in Leo. When Venus goes retrograde at the end of July of 2023, the South Node will have already moved into Libra. So we're really going to want to pay attention to Venus transits. I will be doing a Venus retrograde video. I'm waiting until we get closer to that in July. But if you would like to know more information about that early, I just put on my website. I have a pre-recorded demonstration. It's like a 3-hour long lecture about this upcoming Venus retrograde in Leo. You guys can click on my website, go to my course page, check out my webinars, and you can sign up for that. Lots of extras in that. I have like PDFs and a bunch of election dates and recommendations for working with herbs and crystals, and what this might mean for everybody, why there's so much relationship stuff that's going to be coming up this summer in particular. All right, so let's talk about the South Node moving into the sign of Libra. So specifically, this is going to be taking place July 17th, 2023 through January 11th, 2025. So the North and the South Node change roughly every 18 months. This is the first time in 18, almost 19 years that we've seen the South Node in Libra. When the South Node is in Libra, it basically means that the North Node is in the opposite sign. So the North Node's moving into Aries, and the North and the South Node are planets in astrology that represent the moon's orbital path around the Earth. They're not physical celestial bodies, but they hold symbolic significance in astrological interpretation. In astrology, the South Node represents our past experiences, collectively or on a personal level. Now, for most of this conversation, I'm going to be talking about how this is affecting us collectively, but some of these themes do filter into our own personal lives. It just depends on where Libra is in your chart. The South Node will be transiting through there. Now, it represents our past experiences, skills, traits, and more or less things that we've already mastered in life, right? Or previous lifetimes coming into this particular current life. So in a way, it signifies our comfort zone, what's like familiar in terms of patterns, our karmic lessons that need to be addressed, integrated, or released, depending on how it's aspected. All right, so let's take a look at the dates that the South Node will be transiting the sign of Libra. This is going to be taking place from July 17th, 2023 through January 11th, 2025. Now, when the South Node is in Libra, it means that the North Node is in the opposite sign, so it's going to be ingressing into the sign of Aries. The North and the South Node are points in astrology that represent the moon's orbital path around the Earth. They're not physical celestial bodies, but they hold very significant symbolic significance in astrological interpretation. So in astrology, the South Node represents our past experiences, our skills, our traits that we bring, that we have already mastered from previous lifetimes into this current life. And it signifies our comfort zones, familiar patterns, karmic lessons that need to be addressed, released, or integrated. Now, for the sake of this conversation, we're going to be talking more about how this is affecting us on a collective level, but you can take a look at the South Node in your natal horoscope and see what the lessons are depending on the sign and also the theme. As the South Node is transiting through Libra, even if you don't have any planets there, it's going to move through that particular house. And when there are transits or aspects to the South Node or to Venus or even eclipses, we're going to see themes coming up in regards to the South Node in Libra for all of us collectively. When the South Node is in Libra, it suggests that on an individual level, we've already developed strong traits associated with Libra energy in past experiences. Libra is an air sign ruled by Venus, and it's associated with balance, relationships, diplomacy, harmony, and aesthetics. People who have a strong Libra-like influence, or if they have a South Node in Libra, they have a natural inclination towards seeking harmony, fairness, and cooperative interactions in their relationships and the world around them. However, with the South Node in Libra, we also see that there is a tendency to rely too heavily on these established Libra-type qualities. It leads us to be reluctant to confront others directly. Sometimes we have a fear of asserting ourselves, and we have a bad habit of seeking approval and validation from other people. Sometimes the individual can find themselves overly focused on maintaining peace and harmony at the expense of their own needs and desires. The lesson with the South Node in Libra is to learn to be more assertive, to find personal independence, and develop a healthy sense of self-esteem. Now, this is because the North Node is in Aries. So that North Node in Aries and Mars transits and eclipses in Aries are really kicking this into overdrive, really activating all of us on a personal level, encouraging us to be more focused on what our self needs are, even if that means we have to be a little bit more aggressive or a little bit more quick-tempered to kind of get to where we need to go. It's important, I think, also to be finding balance between the North and the South Node. I don't see it very black and white where the South Node is bad, release, let go. The North Node is good. The North Node can sometimes be mysterious and unknown, and there can be a sense of like really driving towards a certain focus at all costs. So keep in mind that both of these signs are cardinal signs. They do represent Mars and Venus. We're coming out of several years where we've had the North Node in Taurus ruled by Venus, so there's been a focus on resources and pleasure and self-esteem and physical things. The South Node has been in Scorpio, which is a Mars-Pluto ruled sign, so we've been releasing anger, fear, resentment, pain. Now that we're going into the North Node in Aries and the South Node in Libra, it's kind of like we're flipping things and we're integrating more of those Mars-type mentalities on a collective level. I think it's going to be really important for us collectively to be focusing on finding our own identity and defining ourselves outside of relationships. And I think that's going to be the big theme that we're going to see with the South Node in Libra. I also feel like it's definitely going to be changing a lot of our karmic path when it comes to our needs versus other people's needs. I think it's going to be showing us where it's really important to develop independence and, be courageous and not be indecisive. So overall, I think it's allowing all of us to rearrange or reset some of our boundaries, pursue our own desires, and evolve on a personal path. And obviously, because Libra is a sign that's not just associated with Venus, but relationships, marriages, partnerships, business partnerships, clients, people who we see as like an alliance, right? We are clearing some of those bonds with the South Node going through the sign of Libra. So there's going to be a lot of cutting, severing, releasing, purging, healing themes in regards to relationships. We're going to see a lot of changes in relationships throughout this particular period. Now, the last several times that we had the South Node in Libra specifically, if you want to go back and you want to reference these in time, the most recent was from December of 2004 through June of 2006. That's the last time we had the South Node in Libra and the North Node in Aries. And then before that, we had it from April of 1986 to December of 1987. And then before that was August of 1967 to April of 1969. Now, specifically, if you were born between these periods, right? And I know I have, followers that are all different ages, but I find that a lot of people who are following me do tend to be somewhere between like 45 and like 20. So if you happen to be a little bit older than that, then definitely the late 60s might be something that, is connected to your North or your South Node. But I'm specifically talking to those of you guys who were born like in the late 80s, 86, 87, who have like the Uranus Saturn conjunction in Sagittarius And also those of you guys who are a little bit younger, 2004, 2006, you guys are having your North Node return, okay? So this only happens every 18, 19 years. So those of you guys who are having this period, it's very important. It's significant when you're 18 or 19 because it's like your first kind of alignment with your soul's path and with destiny. You get kind of like a brief kind of preview of what your life purpose is. So it's a really exciting time. A lot of you guys are going to be learning more about getting out in the world, being independent, being on your own. Some of you guys are moving out for the first time. You're going to college. You're going to be traveling by yourself. You're learning what it means to like go out into the world and figure out who you are. Those of you guys who were born from 1986 to 1987 who are having your North Node return, this is your second return. It's also going hand in hand with your recent Jupiter return. So this is an interesting time. When you hit this period, it's like your whole future starts to open up, right? You've gone through your Saturn return. You've gone through one nodal return already. You just recently experienced your Jupiter return. So you're also feeling a little bit more excited about the future and the potential of life. And now you're going to have your North Node return. So this is where I feel like people really step into their dharma, their soul's purpose, their life purpose, and you start to see things really kind of evolve. So equally for you, this is really important. You really want to pay attention to Mars transits as well as the eclipses, because you're going to start to see aspects of this unfolding, you know, in real time. And then those of you guys born from 67 to 69, this is going to be your third go round. It is definitely like you've got this down pat, but it can also be this feeling of not just having initiated and started it in your 30s, but now you're getting like a reminder of what your purpose is and how you can help other people. And if you feel like you missed your shot, this is another opportunity to kind of hit this again. Those of you guys who have your North Node in Libra and your South Node in Aries, so this would be the inverse, okay? So if you have the opposite, because I noticed some people were saying, what does it mean if I have the opposite placements? This basically means you're having your reverse nodal return. Equally, this also happens every 18 or 19 years, but this is when you have the transiting South Node conjunct your natal North Node, transiting North Node conjunct your natal South Node. So it's kind of like, in my opinion, the past and the future meet in the present. So you'll see like a reevaluation of where you've been, some of your patterns, some of your relationships, and all of those themes relating to Aries and Libra, which are complementary regardless of how the nodes are configured. And then you'll also see new people coming into your life, new lessons, new experiences. So there's a little bit of being like, do I want to stay in the past? What do I bring with me? What do I leave behind? Where can I go into new opportunities and uncharted territory? What I like about this is that having the transiting North Node conjunct your natal South Node means that you have the ability to unlock soul potential, experiences, relationships, and things that are already familiar to you. So think of it as like you're dipping into past life experiences and you're using that to basically, you know, help you navigate moving forward. It can be a time where you're meeting people and you're like, whoa, like we have a connection. This feels very familiar. It can also be a time where you're feeling like you're having like past life recalls. So it can be an interesting time for like meditation, past life regression, and also working with dream interpretation, because there can be downloads that can come from past lives. Now, to those of you guys who have your North Node or your South Node either in Cancer or in Capricorn, these are other cardinal signs. So basically this means as the North and the South Node are moving through Aries and Libra, it's coming into a square with your nodal signs. We call this your nodal square. So once again, happens roughly every 18 years. You are going to be seeing this taking place. And what it's going to be doing is it's going to be squaring your nodes. Now you want to really pay attention, especially when the nodal squares are getting within, let's say, like the same 3 degrees or so. So for example, let's say your North Node is in Cancer at 10 degrees and your South Node is in Capricorn at 10 degrees. When you start to see the North and the South Node in Aries and Libra get to about 13 to 7 degrees, that period of time, which is probably going to be like maybe 2.5 months or so, you're going to experience the transiting nodes square your natal nodes. And this is a difficult one. I had this like a year ago. It was a little challenging. It definitely represents a period of time where what you've been doing and what you're going to be doing are getting challenged by the nodes squaring. And whenever anything squares the nodes, we have to integrate that. So essentially, the square is forcing you to act bringing up energies in two separate houses in your chart that's creating events, pushing you to get out of your past habits and pushing you to have experiences that are outside of your comfort zone to better prepare you for your next nodal return. Sounds a little complex, but essentially, when I went through it, I was kind of like, what am I supposed to do? Like, nothing is really like working. I feel like I'm in uncharted territory. I wanted to be doing my North Node stuff, but it's not the right time to do it. So I found myself having to really integrate the lessons of that particular nodal transit. Just to give you guys reference, my North Node is in the 5th house in Aquarius. My South Node is in Leo in the 11th house. I'm a Libra rising. So I have 4 planets in Scorpio. So I natally have squares to my nodes anyway. So as the North Node has gone through Taurus in my 8th house, and as Uranus has gone through Taurus in my 8th house, I've had Uranus oppose my Sun Mercury, square the nodes. I have now Jupiter coming into my 8th house, squaring the nodes. So I've had a really long period of fixed squares that have been taking place between Saturn and Aquarius, and now these Jupiter transits and the nodal transits. Very frustrating for me. But I have realized that the way out of that square is to lean more into the transiting North Node, because it's saying, like, whether you like it or not, you have to do these things. And if you do these things, then it's going to release some of the pressure in other areas in the chart where you're experiencing the square. In those situations, it is helpful to get a reading. Like if you have a grand fixed square or if you have a grand cardinal cross in your chart through transits, it can be really helpful because you will benefit from talking to an astrologer, because they're going to look at it and say, okay, this is the way out. This is the angle that you work with, or this is the planet that you work with that's going to allow you to kind of release some of that pressure. Equally, if you are experiencing a square, you want to look at where the square may actually be sextiling or trining natal places in your horoscope. If you do that, it's kind of like making lemonade, right? It's going to allow you to alleviate the pressure of the square if you're working with a sextile to another planet in another house, or even a trine. And in situations like that, it's like when you have something difficult, it's difficult, but it's allowing other parts of your natal horoscope to open up and kind of like activate and assist you through that process of what can feel like a lot of pressure during that time. So hopefully that gives you guys a little bit more insight. Also, something that you guys want to keep in mind is that now that we're going to have the South Node moving into Libra, it's really important for us to be paying attention to Venus as well as Mars. So Mars rules the North Node. Throughout the next 18 months, we're going to be paying attention to when Mars makes hard aspects, conjunctions, squares, oppositions, or if Mars is involved in any of the eclipses. Equally, when we have eclipses in Aries, we want to see what's going on there, because Mars's condition and the sign that it's in is going to tell us how well that particular eclipse is going to play out. Now, for the South Node in Libra, we want to pay attention to Venus, and Mars and Venus are both personal planets. Venus deals more with love, relationships, finances, resources, these types of things. Mars is going to deal more with action and passion and cutting and severing, burning, conflict. So we're moving away from South Node and Venus. We're observing it, but we're moving away from it. We're going to need to be watching Venus throughout these transits. And one of the big first main events that Venus is actually going to have is at the end of July, all the way really until the beginning of September, Venus will be retrograde. So it's a really big way to kind of kick off the South Node in Libra throughout that particular transit. Because Leo natally sextiles Libra, we're going to see sextiles between Venus and the South Node, which is essentially saying it's allowing us to clear relationships to be able to better get to the heart of the matter, to focus on self-love, to focus on self-expression, creativity, anything that's hindering us from being able to share and express ourselves. Now, it is possible that like breakups, heartbreak, all that stuff can fuel some of our creative passions. I think some people will definitely benefit from that because they may feel inspired, and we could see some really significant art created as a result of some breakages in relationships. But I also think that it's really kind of suggesting that the Venus retrograde is a lot more important than I think we're aware of. I was like stunned when I saw how many aspects Venus makes throughout the retrograde, not just the sextile to the South Node, not just the trine to the North Node, but the fact that it's going to be the focal point of a yod between Pluto and Neptune. So that, and then peppered in with like a bunch of squares that Venus is going to make to both Jupiter and Uranus and Taurus, This summer is drama. There's going to be a lot of changes, a lot of emotional changes, a lot of relationship changes, style changes, financial changes, the list goes on. But this also means with the South Node in Libra, I think that there's going to be lots of soulmate activations. Now, you guys know, like, I'm not one of those twin flame readers. I'm not somebody who talks a lot about soulmates because I believe that we can have multiple soulmates. Not all of them have to be romantic. But with the South Node in Libra, we definitely see a lot more reconnections from past relationships, from past lives than normal periods. We also see that a lot during Venus retrograde. So when you factor the two together, there's definitely going to be a lot of changes going on in relationships. I do think with the South Node in Libra, especially in the late degrees of Libra, we're going to see a lot of people separating and divorcing, and really focusing on, separating from relationships that they aren't getting their needs met or they're not able to truly be themselves, allowing people to better find themselves or find better matches. So significant or well-known partnerships may split. We might see this out in the world or in Hollywood or even in business. I also wonder if this is going to be like designer teams that are going to split, because Libra does deal with like design, and it does deal with like arts and also like music. We might see like a significant duo breakup, or we might see like band members kind of have a tiff and split. That can be something that can happen throughout this transit. Now with the South Node in Libra, I think we're going to see less politeness and more action, right? Because as we're breaking away from that South Node in Libra, which is all about mediating, finding the middle ground, being able to, have a win-win, like finding a balance between two people. The North Node in Aries, people are going to be so focused on getting their needs met and doing it quickly and doing it in a way that can be confrontational or combative or selfish. Now, we can find a balance between the two. It is possible that if we can really be focusing on our own personal needs, we're breaking out of old patterns in relationships and codependency. But I definitely feel like there's going to be some challenges in regards to, people realizing that we can't just keep people pleasing. We can't just keep telling people, yes, that's fine, or overbooking ourselves or making sacrifices in relationships, and like doing ourselves a disservice. I do think there's going to be, in some ways, less of a focus on beauty and more of a focus on physical or masculine energy. It depends on the transits that are going on, so it's going to depend on how Venus is being aspected. But when the South Node's in Libra, we're not going to see like a lot of like feminine energy. We don't see that. We see more North Node in Aries. Masculine, athletic, quick moving, themes involving like warriors, armor, stuff that might be like more muscular, especially because Venus or Libra is soft, right? It's balanced, it's Venusian. We see like a shape to it. So we might notice some of these themes in hairstyles, in fashion, in magazines. We're going to see a lot more archetypal themes of the warrior than we are the goddess. And it's almost like we're shifting away from Venus and shifting more into the direction of Mars. Now, some people with positive aspects throughout this transit will have the ability to unlock charm and beauty and artistic talent and the ability to relate and relationships. I don't believe that just because the South Node is in Libra that we're going to totally erase all that stuff. And with eclipses, right, whenever you're looking at eclipses in your chart, even though an eclipse is in one house, it still is being reflected from actions that are taking place in another house. So I do feel like the zodiac really is 6 signs that have polarity. So we can't have Libra without Aries, right? We can't have the need for partnership and harmony without some kind of conflict or some kind of drama. Anybody who's got like a Libra rising or an Aries rising, or if you have planets in those two particular signs, you see how they kind of bounce off of each other, right? And sometimes a little friction is a good thing because it allows two of these particular signs to come together and collaborate. But once again, diplomacy might be harder to come by. It might be harder to get along with relationships and spouses or partners. Likely, we're also going to see that there's going to be threats of war and conflict on a global stage, especially because one of the major aspects that we're going to see right off the bat is going to be Pluto square the nodes. Now, if you guys are taking a look at the screen right now for July 17th, 2023, the day that the North and the South Node come into Libra and Aries, you notice that it's on a new moon that's taking place in Cancer. So what's going to be setting up pretty much from the 17th through the end of July is going to be a grand cardinal cross. we're going to see 29, 29, 29, 29. Just literally hours after this new moon, once the moon hits 29, the moon is squaring its own nodes in a crisis degree, opposing Pluto in a crisis degree, and reactivating that North Node in Aries eclipse that we had at 29 degrees that was taking place in April. So essentially, July, August is like lit up. Obviously, I know some of the cardinal signs right now are shaking in their boots. So I apologize. Not only are you kind of getting hit with the pressure of Pluto going back into Capricorn, creating a conjunction or a square for most of you guys, but now we're going to have the nodes that are also changing signs. So those of you guys who have cardinal placements, sun, moon, or rising, Aries, Cancer, Libra, or Capricorn, really like 26 to 29 degrees, you're in the pressure zone. You're really going to be experiencing squares, especially if you're a Cancer, sun, moon, or rising. You're definitely feeling this. So it's normal with the eclipses and also with some of these squares taking place in July to be like, what is going on? As we watch the sun move, the sun will then hit 29 degrees, and it's also going to reactivate this square again. So like the 17th through the 21st, I think there's going to be some real pivotal events taking place in the world. At the same time, keep in mind, like I said, the North Node is in Aries, ruled by Mars, and Mars is going to oppose Saturn. Likely what we're going to hear is that there's going to be some real significant health challenges, things involving job loss, record like numbers of people who might even be unemployed. I'm having some concerns with new potential future like mandates or questions involving viruses or health-related issues. That's definitely something that I think is going to be coming in the fall. Now, if we look at where Venus is, right around the time of the 21st, this is right before she goes retrograde. She's at 28 degrees, conjunct Regulus, in a quincunx with Pluto, in a quincunx with Neptune, the focal point of a yod. Something very significant is going to be taking place on the world stage at the end of July. And likely, it's going to be a huge turning point for all of us in regards to our inner child, our emotions, our creative sense of self, as well as our relationships. So you really want to be paying attention to what's happening. There are so many things linking up in the skies. When planets hit the late degrees of any sign, it's almost like the final act. It's like the curtain is closing, and we're getting ready to complete something. So yeah, I think that we're going to see a lot of stuff going on. It's not even just so much that the sun is activating that square. And the square in itself with the sun in opposition to Pluto is likely a period where we're really going to be seeing truths being revealed in regards to some kind of shadow-related situation. Pluto is the shadow. It's also about crime. So Pluto being in the late degrees of Capricorn, it's retrograded back to this degree. It's going to be in and out between now and the end of 2024. Likely we're going to see some significant situation in regards to a politician or somebody who might be in office or some kind of leader who's being asked to step down because of something that they have done that's being exposed. Because the sun does deal with like people in high society who are like leaders. And as this squares the nodes, we're going to see that potentially this is something that starts some kind of like political war, some power struggle. It is possible that there may be some like false flag event or something that is set up to scare people into thinking that we're going into war, to divert from focusing on the real issue at hand, which is likely going to be an abuse of power. Something else that I want to show you guys are some of the more significant aspects that we're going to see with Venus throughout these particular next couple of years. And then I want to show you guys the eclipses. So let me first take you through the major aspects now that we've already kind of spoken about Pluto square the nodes. You guys may have seen that video. I already put a video out on that. This is all about how we're being brought to this moment where we're being asked to take this pressure with the North and the South Node square Pluto and transmute it, change it in some way, allow something to end so something new can be reborn. So even if you don't have any planets in Capricorn, it doesn't matter. You want to take a look at where Capricorn is in your chart. Really, for all of July as well as August, we're going to feel the nodes squaring Pluto, and it's going to be a period where we have to really finally challenge authority structures in our lives, where something has power over us, where we're afraid of something, where there's some kind of fear that we don't want to uncover or deal with. there's something that we're afraid to heal or really kind of work through. It does deal with like power structures out in the world and like where they are, abusing power. Let's just say that. And Capricorn is about, government and political officials, people who wear uniforms, big business. And then we're going to see that North and the South node really square for a period of time. It's going to be about a month and a half until we see the North and the South node hit about 26 degrees and it comes out of a square with Pluto. Obviously, the Venus retrograde, which is going to go on all summer long. But the first major aspect outside of the Venus retrograde that's really important is actually going to be when Venus comes into an opposition with Saturn. So Venus is going to fall into a sign where it's debilitated. It's moving into Virgo. And when Venus comes into an opposition with Saturn, that is going to be felt by the South node. Ironically, there's some synchronicity here because as that Venus-Saturn, which can represent a separating in relationships, something that's not balanced, something that's not healthy, right? It can also represent in the sign of Virgo patterns, habits, health, addictions, issues like that. At the same time, we see Mars hit 29 degrees. Once again, coming out of a square with Pluto and also activating that 29-degree eclipse that we had in Aries in April. So this is another important time that we want to watch right around October 10th of 2023. Mars ruling the North node, right, at 29, and then Venus ruling the South node in opposition to Saturn. So there's severance or things that are kind of breaking apart. So that can be a time where we're seeing like lots of issues in relationships and people kind of separating and having like more so like division in relationships, harder to find the harmony. Then when Venus comes into conjunction with the South node, which will be this fall, it's going to be when Venus hits 24 degrees. And this is important because Venus rules the South node. So first we see Venus oppose Neptune in Virgo. So that can be like illusions in love, not seeing clearly, miscommunications or understandings with financial transactions, money going missing, health-related issues in regards to women. And then we're going to see Venus conjunct the South nodes. That's going to be right around November 29th, 2023. At a Pisces degree, quincunx Neptune. So there's something about dishonesty in love, hiding things, people not being loyal, people not being committed, breaking the bonds in relationships. But South Node Venus can also be a time where people are dreaming about past relationships. They're reconnecting with past relationships. People are popping up out of the blue. There's some kind of spiritual intervention that's going on in the cosmos. If people are meant to separate or reconnect, they will, right? And then another huge transit, for me at least, is going to be when Venus comes into a square with Pluto. And that's going to be at 28 degrees around December 2nd. So we've got Venus at 28, Pluto at 28, squaring each other. North and the South node rulers in disharmony, still kind of picking up by 5 degrees the squares to the nodes. This is going to be a long period. The whole second half of 2023 is like Pluto square the nodes. So it's really important for people to know where Pluto is because it's causing some problems, and it's going to be a continuation of power struggles out in the world, which is impacting our ability to better relate to other people. When the North Node is in Aries, people are angry, right? They're frustrated. Yes, they have goals. Yes, they want to get their needs met. Yes, they want to be active, but it doesn't resonate well with some Venus-Pluto squares and some, Pluto square the nodes, because I do think that a lot of people are going to be up in arms in having conflict about what's going on in the world. And I do think we're going to see more division with people within relationships, romantic relationships, family relationships, friendships, over politics, right? So it's really important to realize that in many ways, I wonder if this is something that's being orchestrated. I do think a lot of the things that are taking place this year is going to be about distraction and political theater and things to kind of keep people busy, kind of gossiping and talking about what's kind of coming out in the news, and also creating more anger and frustration because they know it's going to push people to tipping points and to a point where people are going to start acting out. So there, in turn, they can do things to make sure that they're potentially limiting our rights. So realize that there's a lot of stirring the pot that's going to be going on with some of these squares and some of these oppositions. Now, when we get into 2024, something that also piqued my interest is going to be when Mars and Venus connect. So Mars is following Venus very closely this summer in July and August, but Venus slows down because she's going to retrograde. So she doesn't actually catch up to Mars until she gets into Aquarius. She'll be following behind in Capricorn. And then we're going to see Venus and Mars connect around 6 degrees, around February 21st, 2024. And there will be several days, 7 degrees, 8 degrees. And then they kind of start to separate right around the 27th. Mars and Venus, they're star-crossed lovers, right? So when they come together, it's like war can cease, people can have love, there can be more relationships, there's more passion, there's a lot more lust and like intimacy in the skies. So when they're coming together, yes, things can actually be a little bit better, especially because then we're going to start seeing that they're going to be trining the south node, sextiling the north node. So yeah, there can be some more harmony then. Obviously, Mars and Venus in Aquarius is a little different. It's more social, it's more unconventional, it's unique, it's more free. Sometimes it can be about friendship, it can be about platonic love. It's not the most romantic conjunction that you're going to see. But nevertheless, we see the North Node and the South Node rulers in harmony closer to February of 2024. Then we're going to see in April, first Venus is going to come into conjunction with Saturn. That'll be on an eclipse. I'll talk about that in a second. That'll be around the end of March. But in April, Venus is going to move into Aries, still debilitated, having Venus go through a Mars-related sign, but that's okay. And Venus is going to sit on the North Node right around like April 16th, 17th, 2024. So we've got the South Node ruler, obviously in an uncomfortable sign, but still on the North Node, directing us towards the future of love. And Aries is self-love. Love in action, love being a verb, right? It's less about kind of the fantasy if it's in Pisces. It's less about the commitment in Capricorn, or kind of like the all of the extras when it's in Libra. I see like Venus in Libra, even though it's its home ruling sign, it can be much more about aesthetics, and it can be about appearances and trying to keep up with appearances and love for the sake of like relationships and partnerships. But I think in Aries, it's going to be like, okay, if you love someone, you have to love yourself first. So that'll be interesting to see Venus on the North Node. Shortly after, Venus is going to come into conjunction, it looks like, with Mercury. Mercury will be retrograding. So that's also a change in relationships or options or choices in partnerships around the 18th. And then we're going to see Venus come into conjunction with Chiron, which is going to be healing wounds revolving around love. With the North Node in Aries, with the North Node that will have come into contact also with Chiron, really the theme of spring of 2024 is healing the self. We're going to see lots of themes out in the world where we're going to be learning more about health issues relating to Aries-related things. Abrasions, accidents, blood, things relating to the head, things relating to our military, to veterans, the list goes on. So to see Libra, which can be women, but it can also be allies or support systems or legal rights coming into the North Node, perhaps we start to see more support for individuals receiving more support if they are veterans, or if they have served, or if they've had health-related issues, or perhaps even more legal rights coming up revolving around injuries and accidents connected to mandates. That is possible. And I'm going to talk a lot about that. I want to do like a webinar just on the North Node conjunct Aries next year, and like the importance of self-healing and recognizing your own wounds. That'll be fun because Chiron's going to be on my moon, so I think I'll be ready for that. And then we've got some other interesting stuff happening in April going into May. So around May 18th, 2024, Venus moves into its ruling sign of Taurus, And we're going to see Venus come into conjunction with Uranus the same day that the Sun and Jupiter come into conjunction. So that also kind of piqued my interest. So we've got Venus-Uranus conjunct at a Uranian degree, 23. So wild changes going on with finances and resources. I anticipate this is going to be something connected to digital banking and currency or cryptocurrencies. So lots of unexpected changes going on with finances. And also the same day, the Sun and the Jupiter come into conjunction. Now, this can represent, right? Because for Libra, this is 8 houses away. Significant opportunities for wealth, for growth, for prosperity. But also large transactions, things going on with the banking institutions, stuff going on with taxes. It's hard to say, but Venus is not just the ruler of the South Node, but the dispositor of all these damn planets in Taurus. So there's some definite things changing within the financial institutions, and likely we're going to be finding out that there is some, not just push, the push is happening in 2023. There is some adopting digital currencies in spring of 2024. Now, just days later, then we see Venus come to conjunction with Jupiter, and this is literally in the final moments of Jupiter in Taurus, right before Jupiter goes into Gemini. We're going to see Venus and Jupiter come into conjunction 29 degrees of Taurus. Whoa. So what does it mean? Huge breakthroughs in resources. Some people who have made investments might see major growth in some of their resources. This is also in an exact sextile 29 degrees of Neptune. So where a lot of people were manifesting, dreaming, creating their plans for the future when it comes to future resources and growth, now we're starting to kind of see it physically manifest. So the end of May of 2024 is going to be particularly interesting. And then if I take you guys to August 7th, this is going to be when Mercury retrogrades in Aries. Excuse me, not in Aries, in Virgo. There we go. So Mercury is retrograding in Virgo, and whenever I see like a Mercury retrograde in conjunction with Venus, that can be a time where we're reviewing our resources, reviewing our finances, reviewing our spending habits, our self-esteem, but also changes in relationships, reflecting on relationships, exes call, people kind of from the past come back. So Mercury retrograde conjunct Venus, hey, right? Kind of in a square to this Jupiter-Mars energy. Lots of mutable squares next year with Jupiter going into Gemini, so there's going to be a lot of change. But that can also be a turning point for certain relationships, and being that it's at a 3, changing the way that we think or communicate about love and acts of service, Virgo. Obviously, Venus isn't totally thrilled being in that sign. So that'll be a time where I do anticipate more relationship changes. And then finally, December of 2024, we're going to see Venus conjunct Pluto, conjunct Ceres. Ceres can go one of two ways. It can be about nurturing, it can be about mothering, it can be about caretaking, it can be about feeding and housing, but it can also be about grief, depression, loss, opiates, things involving separation. So to see Ceres in conjunction to Pluto, in conjunction to Venus, I think that there's going to be a lot of collective grief, a lot of collective loss, sadness, financial change, major financial change. 0 degrees of the fixed signs is very potent. And if you guys remember this degree, this is where we had the great conjunction in 2020 in the fall, right? We saw Saturn and Jupiter come into conjunction. I do feel like this might be about issues involving shortages of food, right? Of grains, and finding out that because there is some kind of loss, there's more of a forward path that's being paved for, growing food in labs or things that are going to be more kind of technologically advanced, or food that might be, synthetic. I don't like saying that, but that's kind of the vibe that I'm getting. And this is going to be forming a trine to the south node. So that's another indication of releasing and also some kind of loss. Now, those are the big aspects. Obviously, once we get into the beginning of 2025, we're going to see then the north node is going to start moving into Pisces. It's going to come into connection with Neptune. The south node is going to move into Virgo. That's when shit starts to hit the fan. You know, I don't like talking about stuff like this, but I've been really looking at this next Saturn-Neptune conjunction that's coming. And it starts first with the North Node and Neptune in the late degrees of Pisces. Traditionally, Pisces is ruled not just by Neptune, but by Jupiter. And we're going to see Jupiter come into a square. So financially, 2025, 2026, with Jupiter being in Gemini, you'll see some of this in 2024. Job loss, we're going to see lots of people who I think are going to be experiencing some financial hardship because Jupiter moving out of fixed Earth into mutable air, and also in its opposite sign to its ruler Sag with the squares. We're going to be finding out whether it's because of new pandemics or whether it's because of new, limitations in society, because of technology, because of environmental things, that we're experiencing lots of turbulence. And North Node, Saturn, Neptune is like masses of people that are in isolation or in hospitals or in camps, right? And as much as I hate to say that, these things I do believe will happen. And then we start to see Saturn coming into the late degrees. Neptune moves into Aries, and we're going to see Saturn go into Aries and come into conjunction with Neptune. So it's going to be a real rude awakening 2025 when we start to see Saturn and Neptune finish their transit in the late degrees of Pisces, where things are the most conspiracy oriented, the most hidden, the most secretive. And I've heard a lot of people have been asking me recently about aliens, right? And just my hot take on it is, well, Uranus deals with outer space, and it deals with exploration and travel, and things regarding technology and how we get there, and how we, get around in these potential future planets and things. I believe that Neptune really is more about aliens. Neptune is really going to be more about other beings, other dimensions, other entities. It's also about ghosts. It's about psychic phenomena. So I actually think more of the stuff that's getting hyped up that we're hearing in the media and in the news about aliens and alien invasions is bullshit. I think it's bullshit. And I think that they're putting a lot of this stuff out because there is reverse engineered technology that's out there. The government is hiding this stuff. They're covering it up. They don't want people to know that we have these capabilities, and that potentially anything that we see throughout some of these Saturn-Neptune aspects may potentially be staged. I really do not feel like they are going to be real, to be honest with you guys, as crazy as that sounds. We'll continue to watch Saturn actually go in and out of Pisces. So Saturn and Neptune then retrograde back in 2025. And Neptune drops back into Pisces. Saturn drops back into Pisces. And we're going to see 2025, there's more of this. So I actually think the future of any potential limitations in society is don't go outside of your cities. Don't go outside of your zones. It's not safe out there. There's aliens. Or it's not safe out there because of what's going on with the environment, and you guys are spreading viruses, so you have to be within these like limitations and these bounds of specific places. Mark my words, as crazy as a lot of this stuff sounds, I really do feel like that's what's going to be happening. With that being said, let me show you guys some of the eclipses that are going to be connected to this particular cycle. Now, as many of you guys know, we already had a eclipse that got kicked off here in 2023. We had this April 19th solar eclipse in Aries at 29 degrees. I'm sure you guys can't forget that one. It was a hot mess, square to Pluto, and in conjunction to the North Node because it was within 10 degrees. So even though the North Node wasn't officially in Aries yet, the eclipse was setting us up for where we were going, right? So the first series of eclipses with this has actually already begun. Now we're focusing more on Libra, so I want to talk to you guys more about Libra. But the very first solar eclipse in Libra that's going to be taking place as a part of this cycle over the next 18 months is going to be on October 14th, 2023. Now this new moon in Libra solar eclipse is at 21 degrees. It is going to be obviously in opposition to the south node, in conjunction to the north node. So the sun and the moon are very close to the south node. We may see in the days to follow that there is some disruption in harmony, disruption in relationships, you know, separating, severing, which I already saw with the Saturn-Venus opposition. Obviously, if you have any planets 20 to 22 degrees of Libra, sun, moon, or rising, or the cardinal signs, so Aries, Cancer, and Capricorn, you'll experience an opposition or a square. So you'll be feeling that pressure. Then the next one that we're going to have is going to be a Libra lunar eclipse, full moon, okay, at 5 degrees of Libra. And Libra being ruled by Venus, we still want to see what's going on with Venus. We have Venus in its exaltation in Pisces, not too bad, but it's conjunct Saturn, so there is some kind of sacrifices in what we're giving or what we're releasing or what's wrapping up or what's resting or what's going away. Venus Saturn does deal with like coldness, and sometimes it's commitment, but sometimes it's the inability to open up to love or to feel lovable. To have this be taking place in the sign of Pisces, I do think is going to be really significant for art and for film. There might be some significant releases coming out in the spring of 2024. It's really great for like spiritual work and devotion. But still, it's in a sign that quincunx or in conjuncts Libra. So it's 6 houses away from Libra. So it can also be something relating to prisons, hospitals, private centers, immigration, limitation, borders, right? And things revolving around femininity and women's health with Saturn and Venus. And then we're going to have another Libra solar eclipse. And this will be on October 2nd, 2024. Solar eclipse, new moon in Libra, 10 degrees. Obviously ruled by Venus. Venus is right here in Scorpio, so it is a little bit debilitated. Not unusual. Usually you're going to see Venus is going to be somewhere between Scorpio and Virgo when the sun is in Libra. New moon, obviously new opportunities, still very close to the south node. So I've noticed with both of these that the south node proximity is very close. So the clearing of relationships once again in the fall, beginning of October of 2024 is very real. I think with Venus being in Scorpio, it is difficult because it is moving into a Pluto related sign. But what I like about it is that it's second house to Libra, so it is solid. It's in a trine to Saturn, so there is limitations, boundaries, commitments, something solid. And it's also in a trine to Mars. And we've got some grand water trine action here. So it's psychic, it's emotional, it's intuitive. But that can mean that there's some emotions connected to having to cut, purge, release and like let go of something. So it's good for like spiritual work, intuition. I do believe it's beneficial for the water signs. But for some people, it can be waves of emotions that are still kind of coming up, right? And that's the only eclipses that I'm going to talk about. Obviously, in 2024, we will see the eclipses that are going to start happening in Virgo. So at least I believe they are. Is it Virgo or is it Pisces? I think it's Virgo. Oh, no, it's Pisces. I take that back. It's Pisces. So we'll see another cycle that's going to begin, that's going to be ushering out the Scorpio, Taurus eclipses. The last one will actually be Taurus in this fall of 2023. And then fall of 2024, we're going to start seeing eclipses that are going to start coming in Pisces and then Virgo. But that'll be for another video. I don't want to get into that with you guys quite yet. Obviously, those of you guys who this is going to affect the most, if you happen to be a Libra, sun, moon, rising, you guys are the ones that are going to be feeling this the most. Obviously, in this particular year, in 2023, we're going to see the north and the south node get to about, round about like 22 degrees. So if you happen to be a Libra, sun, moon, or rising, if you have anything from 29 to 22 degrees, you're going to be impacted the most with the nodal transits this year. So pretty much the third decan of Libra is the one who's going to kind of feel this the most. Equally, the cardinal signs, right? So Aries, Cancer, and Capricorn. You guys are going to be feeling this, especially you, Cancer, because you're going to have all different angles that are going to be represented. When you have these changes, it means there's more pressure in your angular houses, which means there's going to be more change in 4 different areas of your life, which makes the wheel of the chart turn. So the positive is it helps you make shifts in your life, right? And for the air signs, you know, this is beneficial. You're going to have trines. So Gemini and Aquarius, you'll have trines, which is going to help you tap into that natal energy. Sagittarius as well as Leo, but beneficial because you're going to see trines or you're going to be seeing sextiles as well. Not that it's not important, but it's not as active for the water and the earth signs. So just keep in mind, you know, throughout this South Node transit over the next year and a half, we are going to be acknowledging when it's time to be relationship oriented, when it's not. We can tap into old relationship skills. We can build connections, seek harmony, promote cooperation if it's the right time. But most of us are going to be going in the direction of focusing on our needs, how to take action, how to stand up for ourselves, how to focus on our own passions and desires. We can tap into the ability to harmonize and work well with other people. It is possible that we can mediate conflict and find common ground in diplomacy, but not everybody is going to want to do that. We need to watch out for people-pleasing tendencies. There is a need to really let go of that and develop our own identity outside of relationships, outside of partnerships, and figure out who we are and what we stand for. It is a good time also to make changes in our aesthetic. If it's time to have a new hairdo, change up our wardrobe, make some shifts in regards to even our physical appearance, and get things more so balanced, we might do that. We're going to let go of like seeking validation. We're moving away from feeling like we need to be indecisive and we can't make decisions. And we finally are being given the opportunity to break long-standing relationship patterns and tendencies. So whether you're partnered or not, it's going to give you the opportunity to kind of clear the decks, heal yourself, practice forgiveness, get closure, and finally move on to the right relationships if that's something that you're looking forward to doing. If you guys want to find out more about this, make sure you watch my horoscopes that are going to be coming out for July of 2023. Those will be coming out in the next week or so. I'm going to take you through all of the 12 signs in that horoscope and talk about where the nodes are changing and why it's important for you. I hope you like this video. Like I said, I will pin the one for the North Node in Aries so you guys can take a look at that if you want a refresher on the polarity of this, where we're going to be talking more about that Mars-related energy. Let me know, are you having your nodal return? Do you happen to have a sun, moon, or rising in Libra? How do you feel about this? Do you remember the last time that we went through these particular cycles? I love hearing your guys' comments. I can't always get back to everybody, but I do read them. And I really appreciate you guys giving me a thumbs up. If you like this video and if you found it helpful, consider sharing it on your social media platforms or with somebody else who would benefit from this. Equally, make sure you click the button below and you're subscribed. If you guys like my style of reading and you want to book a reading with me, check out my website at beyondtheveiltarot.com. I'd be happy to read your chart for you and talk to you guys about what you got going on. I also have a special on my website right now where I'm doing personalized reports for the Venus retrograde in Leo. So if you want to know how this is going to be impacting you, especially if you have personal planets in Leo or if you're a Venus-based chart, make sure you check it out. Or you can catch me here on Fridays where I'm doing live readings at 5 p.m. Pacific, 8 p.m. Eastern. We're doing readings on a donation base and we do tarot or astrology. So make sure you're here if you guys want a reading. And I hope you guys like this video. Enjoy the rest of your week. I'll see you guys back here on Friday. Take care.